All right, everybody, welcome back into Cherry Pick. In today's video, we'll be looking at the second half of the season yet again. We did that last week with forwards, defensemen, and goalie, but today we're looking at the top 10 forwards for the rest of the season. So excluding the first half stats, just looking at the second half of the season now, the last 35 to 40 games here, depending on which players we're talking about. Starting at number 10, all the way to number 1, and a lot of these are obvious. A lot of these maybe not be so obvious to you, but obviously I'm going to give you those hard reasons why. Let's get into today's video. All right, so coming in at number 10 on the list is Artemi Panarin on the New York Rangers. So obviously right now, I think 6th or top 5 in points so far with 77 points, 76 points this season. Obviously having a terrific year. We're seeing one of the best goal scoring years from Artemi Panarin that we've ever seen. I think his career high is 32 goals and already on the season, 31 goals. So been overperforming, I would say, in that category is kind of why I have him a little bit further down. Because if you look at the stats, currently he's about 5th, I would say, on the fantasy hockey points list, looking at Yahoo scoring, obviously contributing in all facets right now. But I think we're going to see him be more of a distributor in the second half of the season than in terms of scoring goals, which is why I have him a little bit further down on the list. Some of the guys I have higher up on the list definitely didn't, I wouldn't say disappointed in the first half, but didn't get to where I would think their metric kind of looking for the rest of the season. So Panarin obviously playing on that line with Trocheck and Lafreniere. I think Lafreniere continues to really have, I would say, his breakout season this year and will continue in that second half of the year. Has been one of the better players in 5-on-5 in terms of creating offense and getting points so far this season. So that's obviously great to see for Lafreniere and this Rangers team. And then Panarin, I think, will just continue to feed off that. Trocheck obviously having a great year as well. So we're going to see Panarin be more of a contributor, I think, in that second half, which makes him fall down a little bit on the list right now from where he currently stands. Coming in at number 9 on the list is Elias Pettersson on the Vancouver Canucks. Right now, obviously, Elias Pettersson pretty much right at this spot if you're looking at Yahoo Fantasy Hockey leagues in terms of where his ranking is. I have him pretty much producing at a same rate for the rest of the season. He's really my only Vancouver Canuck I have in the top 10. Can definitely be argued that JT Miller can be in here because of the face-off wins that he has, even the hits that he contributes in as well. But I think we're going to see some regression from some of this offense. All of these players are just dealing at such a high rate right now, or scoring at such a high rate, excuse me. Like Elias Pettersson, about a 20% shooting percentage. Brock Besser right around 23%. Miller a little bit more of a contributor, so could end up in the top 10. I just like Peterson for his value in all facets. And I also, you don't really know how he's going to perform with Elias Lindholm. Right now, they are currently playing on the same line. If they will stay on the same line, we'll see. That's obviously up to Rick Tocchet and Jem Rutherford at this point to see if these two guys click well together. Being from the same country, who knows? Maybe they'll just immediately have that Swedish connection, but that remains to be seen here with Elias Pettersson. His shot volume a little bit lower than a lot of these other guys in the top 100, but I think his assist value and kind of how he contributes and scores on the power play will keep him in the top 10 for the second half of the season. Canucks have definitely a difficult second half of the schedule, second half of the season compared to their first half of the season. But I still think Pettersson will be able to score at a decent amount of rate and contribute for your fantasy hockey team. So him and JT Miller, in my mind, are almost interchangeable. Like JT Miller is just outside my top 10 for the second half of the season. I just like the skill set built around Elias Pettersson a little bit more than JT Miller. All right, coming in at number 8, Matthew Tkachuk on the Florida Panthers, a guy that had a really slow start to the year. To look at the start of the season in October, just 7 points to show for it. You look at December, just 9 points. You look at the month of January, 24 points. Only player who had more points in the month of January was Nathan McKinnon. He was tied with Kucherov with the second most. He also had 11 goals. So I think we've seen Matt Tkachuk get into form here. I think we'll continue to see him work on this trajectory. He plays a very similar style, obviously, to his brother in terms of a really high expected goals for number. Guy who gets a lot of shots on goal and then just creating a lot of offense in general, really, and a more physical player, so can contribute in that hits category, block shots, plays in a lot of different situations for this Florida Panthers team. And I think we're going to see some regression maybe from some of these other players on Florida, like a guy like Sam Reinhart right now. His guy's shooting percentage at 27%. There's another guy who had a shooting percentage last year, 27%. That was Andrei Kuzmenko. Not comparing them eye to eye here, but we've never seen Reinhart convert at this high of a rate before. So I think in the second half of the season, it's pretty safe to say that number will drop down a little bit. Someone's going to have to pick up the slack. I think Matt Tkachuk will be able to do that as well, playing on one of the better lines, I would say, in hockey with Carter Verhaeghe and Sam Bennett. One of the more complete lines, that is, as well. So Tkachuk, definitely a contributor in fantasy hockey. I think just relying on him or looking at him at the beginning of the season, if you were disappointed in him and you held on to him, you'll be very happy because I think you'll have a very good second half of the season. All right, coming in at number 7 for the second half of the season, looking at forwards, William Nylander on the Toronto Maple Leafs. So before the All-Star break, went a little bit cold there. I think he had 3 straight pointless games and then picked up an assist against the Isles in their first game back. But he's been so consistent this season. Obviously, he had a huge month of December with 20 points, 5 goals, and 15 assists in that month. And then every other month this season, he's had at least 13 points. So that consistency is really important in fantasy hockey, and his numbers and metrics are not leading you in any reason to believe those numbers are going to change really that much. So I think the stretches where he's gone cold are more due to Tavares or Keefe really moving those two apart, because Tavares went through a very cold or dry spell for a pretty lengthy or long amount of time throughout January as well. But when they're played together, they click at a very high rate. Their line creates a ton of offense with Tyler Bertuzzi as well. I think they've been a little unlucky because Tavares has been phenomenal in terms of creating offense in 5-on-5, but has a shooting percentage less than 5%, which is extremely low, but he has the 9th highest expected goals for. So these two work off each other. Nylander's been able to convert at a little bit higher rate, 5-on-5 and on the power play, but I think we can even see Nylander's numbers on the power play increase even a little bit more. 23 power play points so far. You know, he's in the realm of creating offense, the same likes of some of these top players, and some of the players like Kucherov, Pastrnak have 37 power play points. I know there's a little bit more mouse to feed on that power play in Toronto, but I still think that he's a guy that will have a great second half of the season, mainly because I think we'll see Tavares have a really strong second half of the season. Tavares just outside of my top 15 in terms of forwards for the second half of the season, considering how much offense he's been creating and how unlucky and low his shooting percentages has been. I think this line is going to be really important and valuable for the Leafs for the second half. Now, we talked about his brother, but coming in at number 6 on the list is Brady Tkachuk on the Ottawa Senators. So a lot of people might think this is really high, and I'm missing out on guys like Ranton and other players, but I really think Brady Tkachuk is so valuable. It will be so valuable to fantasy hockey owners for the second half of the season. He had a slow start. 41 points in 47 games is still not that bad if you had a slow start to the season, because his first 2 months, he had 8 points and 7 points, but his last 2 months is 11 points and 15 points, 6 goals in 3 out of those 4 months as well. But you look at the stats for this season, like there's so much hope for where his numbers can finish off. I think it could absolutely still finish in the 80 to 100 point range for sure. And I think that's not even that high of a ceiling or floor. Looking at the stats for the season, 6th in 5-on-5 in expected goals for, right behind David Pastrnak, who has 10 more goals in it. Now, he's not going to score at the same rate as David Pastrnak. Pastrnak is more of a skilled scorer, but still, that's obviously great company to be a part of. He's 2nd in shots in 5-on-5 play this season, right behind Pastrnak with 146. He has more shots than McKinnon and Kucherov in 5-on-5 so far this year. He's also top 10 in hits in 5-on-5 amongst forwards, 120, and then top 10 in high danger scoring chances as well. So those are a lot of really good numbers to be filled in on there. He's also tied for the most 5-on-5 points in January with 14. So he's been playing much better. Both the Tkachuk brothers in the month of January just invigorated to play a lot better. He has so much potential to explode in the second half of the season. The Sens are also in the top 10 when it comes to easiest remaining strength of schedule. So there'll be plenty of opportunities for Brady Tkachuk to show that as well. So coming in at number 5 for the second half best fantasy hockey forwards to own, that's Nikita Kucherov on the Tampa Bay Lightning. So far in the season, tied with Nathan McKinnon for the most points so far this year with 85. They pretty much have identical stats, to be honest, right now. But he's tied for the most points of the season. I think there's some more tangible reasons to put guys like Matthews and Pastrnak ahead of Kucherov on this list. Kucherov's 3rd in shots this season. He's also kind of been a power play merchant. I would just mention it a little bit with William Nylander, but he has 37 power play points. So almost half of his points have come on the power play. 11 goals as well on the power play, only 2nd behind Sam Reinhart, who has 20 power play goals. The guy I left off this list because I think he's due for a little bit of regression, because you need to be able to rely on those 5-on-5 numbers. And not saying the 5-on-5 numbers for Kucherov are bad, but there are a couple players in this league that have better expected stats, and guys I think that can even work towards a better trajectory in the second half of the season here. So, I mentioned the thing about Sam Reinhart, the 27% shooting percentage. His shooting percentage isn't as high as that. It's 15%, a number that Kucherov has been totally fine at and consistent with throughout the course of his career. We've seen Kucherov prove that he's been able to have these massive seasons. Last year, 113 points, and with just 30 goals as well, already up to 32 goals here. So I think we could see his assist numbers explode, and then a consistent amount of goals as he continues to play here for the Tampa Bay Lightning, because let's be honest, they rely on one line and 3 players: Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov, Steven Stamkos in terms of forwards. Obviously, Hagel's actually had a pretty solid year this year with, Nick Paul and Cirelli kind of contributing where they can there, but I don't think they're going to be guys that are obviously going to take anything away from Nikita Kucherov. So he still finds himself inside the top 5. We're looking at a guy who's a couple seasons removed from his Hart Trophy, where he had almost 130 points. So coming in at number 4 on the list, and maybe some people won't necessarily agree with this ranking, but it's Auston Matthews. Some people might think he should be a little bit higher. There are a couple of reasons why think, the three players I have ahead of him can still have better second half of the seasons despite what they did in the first half. So Matthews tied for most 5-on-5 goals so far this season. So even strength goals, 21 so far. So obviously a great number and great company to be a part of there. A great stat really to be leading. He's always been one of those players who has contributed probably, if not more, 5-on-5 than in terms of the power play. He's top 3 in expected goals for on the season so far as well in 5-on-5 play. The reason why I have, let's say, David Pastrnak, who is third on this list over Matthews, because past the shot volume, and Matthews already has 40 goals. So like what the fuck is he gonna finish with 80 goals? I don't think so, but I think it's actually quite realistic to think that Pastrnak can still have another 35 goals to this season and finish with 57 or closer to 60 as well. And remember, we're just weighing the second half of the season. So what you did in the first half at this point for this video does not really matter at all. So regardless, Matthews is a top 5 though. It's a big thing too amongst forwards. He's third in blocked shots this season. So that really surprised me seeing that as well. So if you're in bangers leagues or categories leagues, obviously that carries a little bit of weight as well. He contributes in so many different ways for this Leafs team. Defensively as well, he's such an asset. It's why we're seeing him play about 22 minutes a game, which is about the same as Conor McDavid as well. So Auston Matthews, top 4 on this list and will continue to be a crucial fantasy hockey contributor for your team. So David Pastrnak, number 3 on the list, as I kind of alluded to in the Auston Matthews chat there. So top 5 in expected goals for this season in 5-on-5 play. He has the most shots in 5-on-5 ahead of Brady Tkachuk there, who has that second spot with 154. But his shooting percentage is just around 10%, while Matthews, McKinnon, Panarin, all guys that are scoring at a higher rate but have about the same amount of goals as him, are all at a 15% or higher. And we've seen Pastrnak consistently been a guy with a high shooting percentage. So I think we could see him actually produce at an even higher rate in the second half of the year, which is why I have him at number 3 on this list. With how his 5-on-5 metrics have kind of showed at this point, looking at his power play goals as well, just 11 power play goals, or not just 11, obviously that's second most, but looking at his 5-on-5 production, I think we could see an even uptick in that number as well, which is obviously very exciting. If you are a David Pastrnak owner at this point, I think we'll continue to see him have a great season. It could be his highest goal scoring season yet. All right, number 2 on the list, Nathan McKinnon. Hard obviously to not keep this guy within the top 3 considering how good he's been so far. I believe he's first, either him or Kucherov, depending on what kind of fantasy league you're in terms of fantasy hockey points scored. But Nate is just on another level this season. We're finally seeing him have like a decently high shooting percentage. We've seen him always have the shot volume. For the past couple of years, it's always been more in the assist category than the goal category. And this year, obviously seeing a ton of assists, but we're seeing him score at a much higher rate than we have in the past couple seasons, which is great to see. He leads the NHL in pretty much all 5-on-5 metrics, goals, points. He's second in assists, second in shots as well. He's also top 30 in faceoffs won this season, which is still a good category to have. So a little bit of weight in when you're looking at even these top players. He's currently on pace for a 140-point season and a 50-plus goal season. He's very similar to Conor McDavid. Doesn't really matter who he's playing with, and more often than not, he's on the ice with either Mikko Rantanen or Cale Makar, if not both of them at the same time. And then Jonathan Drouin probably on the other wing, who's looking like he's back into his Halifax Mooseheads kind of form where he was playing with Nathan McKinnon. So I think the Colorado Avalanche trajectory is just going to continue to go up, at least for their offense, which is always good for Nathan McKinnon. And number 1 on the list is Conor McDavid. So he's only played 43 games on the season. You're looking at a guy like Nathan McKinnon, he's played 50 games. Conor McDavid so far on the year, 67 points. I think we'll see him obviously get up to the 120, 130 plus point range at this point. Again, if he continues to produce where we saw him kind of leave off before the All-Star break. He had 64 goals last season, so obviously due for a little bit of regression in terms of his goal scoring. We've seen that with just 20 goals this year, but I think the second half we'll see him score more than 20 goals. I think that's pretty apparent to say, or pretty easy, especially if you're looking at his last 4 games before the All-Star break. 4 goals in his last 3 games before the All-Star break, and it doesn't matter who you put him with, McDavid will produce. He's the best hockey player in the world, obviously. I don't need to tell you that, but a perfect example of that is Zach Hyman. Since he's come to the Edmonton Oilers, he's been a way better goal scorer than we ever saw him with Toronto Maple Leafs, and maybe that's, a little bit due to just producing throughout the course of this league and how you're kind of just how a player continues to develop. Zach Hyman has just found his footing with the Edmonton Oilers. 36 goals last season, 27 in his first season. He missed a couple games. He probably could have had 30 if he did play an 82-game season. So I think that's also why you see Hyman with such an expected goals for, or such a high expected goals for number, is because Conor McDavid just puts the puck in the right position for him to succeed in scoring positions. And that's obviously been very apparent because we haven't seen that with Zach Hyman when he was in Toronto either. As I mentioned, he's played fewer games than Nathan McKinnon and Nikita Kucherov, David Pastrnak, all these guys who have more points than him right now. But if you're looking at kind of of points percentage at this point, he's still very equal with those guys too. And I think we'll even see this power play for the Edmonton Oilers that was first in the NHL last season, not quite first right now this season because there's been other power plays that have been so good, but I think that just leaves them leaving a little bit more room to get even better. And this Oilers team is absolutely rolling as well. So Conor McDavid, the clear number one player. He's not the number one player right now because of how many games he's missed, but I think for the second half, for the remainder of the games in the NHL season, he will be that number one fantasy hockey player. All right, thank you guys for tuning in. Let me know what you thought of the top 10 fantasy hockey forwards for the second half of the season. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.